A meeting takes place at the French headquarters, currently located in Africa. The French commander warns his team, "I have received some important information. The enemy chief, named Massillon, has arrived at Sector Y for a visit. This means that the French squadron will be able to assassinate the man tonight. For this mission, the chief has recruited 5 squadrons, totaling 49 soldiers. He makes it clear that the soldiers will not have air support. One of the fighters asks, 'How many enemies will we face?' The chief replies, 'Between 350 to 500 men.' A soldier named Dairu tries to understand if his friend agrees with this. Kang Chan tells him to be silent. The soldiers are aware that it is impossible to win with the numbers they have. The commander explains that the fighters only need to assassinate Massillon. So, the squad must cease fire and retreat immediately when that happens. Dairu says something to Chan again, and the commander gets angry. The 2 soldiers are silent. That guy, Kang Chan, is our main character. He keeps his gaze steady on the French command. On an ordinary day, this would make the captain angry, but he decides to move on because today is a very special day. After these words, the meeting comes to an end. A few hours later, night comes, and it's time for the French squadron to complete the mission. The protagonist, Kang Chan, is in the lead. The car carrying the soldiers arrives at the destination. Chan gives 5 minutes for the men to get ready and check their weapons. Meanwhile, he takes the opportunity to smoke a cigarette. A blonde soldier approaches and calls, "Chan, Captain." The protagonist faces the soldier, making a strange movement with his hand. Apparently, the man wanted to celebrate after the end of the mission. Dairu joins the conversation and tells Smithin to stop it. Chan also scolds the soldier for thinking nonsense when he should worry about surviving. Smithin calmly says that he has nothing to worry about because he has the god of Blackfield with him. The protagonist laughs and says, "Don't overdo it." 5 minutes later, the squad enters the forest, walking calmly towards the soldiers in Massillon's camp. They walk slowly without causing any noise. Chan goes ahead and checks if there are any enemies hiding behind the bushes or trees. There are about 2 kilometers to go to the actual destination, and everything seems to be going well for now. But for some reason, the protagonist has a bad feeling. Smithin tries to know if the leader is okay. Chan says, "It's just a bad feeling." Smithin mockingly asks if the god of Blackfield is afraid. He even jokes that it's time for Chan to retire. At that moment, the whole squad hears a gunshot. Smithin fell backwards after a bullet pierced his armor. Suddenly, a hail of bullets ripped through the air, targeting Chan's squad. The soldiers scrambled for cover behind the trees. As if the gunfire wasn't enough, the enemy rained grenades down on them. Chan, with a grunt, hauled Smithin behind a thick oak, the relentless attack continuing. A knot of concern tightened in his gut. These weren't just some rogue sentinels. Professional snipers, and by the sound of it, grenade launchers were waiting for them. "Dairu, you alright?" Chan barked, checking on his comrade. "Clean as a whistle," Dairu replied, relief washing over Chan. So far, anyway. Just then, the enemy reinforcements arrived, eager to join the fun against the beleaguered French squad. Chan, his aim honed by countless battles, unleashed a torrent of fire. Several enemy soldiers dropped like flies. Bang! The enemy vehicle sputtered, coughed, and then erupted in flames after the last well-placed shot. Turning his attention back to Smithin, Chan knelt beside him. "Morphine?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. Smithin grimaced, "Nah, I'm good, Cap." Ish. He tried to assess the extent of his injuries. Chan, ever the optimist, lied through his teeth, "Just a scratch." Internally, Smithin was pretty sure some vital organs had been rearranged. "What's the play, boss?" Dairu asked, snapping Chan back to reality. "Gotta bug out. Get Smithin some real help," Chan declared, his eyes scanning the chaotic battlefield. But Smithin, his face pale, grabbed Chan's arm. "No, Captain, you gotta go on." His voice was fading, consciousness slipping away. Smithin, stay with me. You hear me?" "Who am I?" Chan shouted, desperation lacing his tone. Smithin, barely a whisper, replied, "You're the god of Blackfield." Boom! A grenade exploded nearby, sending dirt and debris flying. "Chan," Dairu yelled, coughing. "I'm mostly in one piece. Hold on, Smithin. Just hold on." Chan pleaded, his heart hammering. "I'm gonna end this." Exploding from behind the tree, Chan unleashed a barrage of accurate fire, taking down every target in sight. But then, crack, a bullet slammed into him from behind. He crumpled to the ground, his vision tunneling. "Backstabbed?" He wondered, a bitter taste rising in his mouth. Traitor. My head, Chan groaned, a wave of confusion washing over him. Shouldn't I be dead? He thought, a spark of defiance flickering within him. Why? Why can I still feel pain? Suddenly, a desperate cry escaped his lips. I'm so thirsty. Distant voices buzzed around him. Can you hear us? React if you can. His eyelids fluttered open, his vision blurry. A doctor's face swam into focus. How do you feel? The doctor asked, his voice urgent. Receiving no answer, the doctor barked. Nurse Kim, check his vitals. It took a moment for Chan to register his surroundings, the unfamiliar language washing over him. The patient, Kong Chan, is awake, the doctor announced, relief evident in his voice. Meanwhile, Special Forces Captain Chan struggled to make sense of it all. The doctor, he was Asian. Chan hadn't seen many Asian faces in his French squad. Where am I? He croaked, his throat parched. You're in Sibeo Hospital, Gangnam, the doctor replied. Nurse Kim, page his emergency contact. Gangnam? Korea? Chan's mind reeled. Ow. How'd I get here? He mumbled, his brow furrowed. They called 119, the doctor explained. Chan stared blankly. 119? What's that? He thought, puzzled. There's number 119 inches in Africa. The doctor concludes that the patient is confused because he's been unconscious for 3 days. Chan practically leaps out of bed upon hearing that he's been out for 3 days. He rushes to find a mirror, wondering what he looks like, but the reflection stares back at him, unfamiliar. A few days later, a car glides along the bustling central road of Gangnam. The protagonist had been discharged, finally free to go home. During his hospital stay, he'd gleaned snippets of information. His name was Kong Chan, a 29-year-old team instructor and captain of a French mercenary force. He lost consciousness after being shot during a mission in some dusty African battlefield, only to wake up here. Now, it seems he's inhabiting the body of a 19-year-old kid, also named Kong Chan. Apparently, the original owner decided to take a shortcut off the school roof, resulting in a 3-day nap. Everyone thinks the teenager woke up, but in reality, it's our mercenary friend who's taken over. He figures the original kid probably didn't survive the fall. The woman beside Chan in the car is the original Kong Chan's mother, Hai Suk. She's been told that her son suffered memory loss from the accident. The father, Kong Daekyung, chimes in, confidently assuring his son that his memories will return with time. The father parks the car in front of a ridiculously opulent building. They enter what can only be described as a mansion. The mother softly asks, Chan, do you remember this place? The father quickly interjects, let's not overwhelm him. Son, go rest. The protagonist, ever the obedient soldier, well, sort of, complies. Kong Daekyung guides him to his room, and Chan steps inside. The man tells his wife, it's better not to bombard him with questions. Meanwhile, Chan is utterly speechless, gawking at the room. This is way better than the commander's personal quarters, he mutters. Looks like the original owner came from serious money. A high-end computer immediately catches Chan's eye, but it's locked with a password. Seriously? His attention then shifts to the sleek cell phone on the desk. Time to see what this thing can do, he thinks, deciding to use the device's internet for some research. Password protected too? What is this kid hiding? Fortunately, the phone has a fingerprint reader, and with a scan, he's in. Chan dives into a search about the 2016 battle in Africa. Maybe he can find some clues about his death and this whole bizarre reincarnation situation. But the search yields nothing. He tries searching in French, still nothing related to the conflict. Should I look in French articles? He wonders. Just then, a text message pops up. It's from a guy named Lee Hojin. Yo, you out of the hospital? Chan assumes that Hojin is friends with the owner of this body. He must know I'm home already, he thinks. Suddenly, the guy starts blowing up his phone. Are you crazy? Do you even want to live? Chan, now thoroughly creeped out, decides to ignore it. Definitely not friends, he mutters. But then, another message from Hojin pops up. How dare you ignore me? The messages keep coming, each more unhinged than the last. Chan simply replies, busy. Hojin is enraged and calls. Chan answers, a mischievous giggle bubbling up. Hee hee. The bully is clearly bothered by the laughter. Were you brave after you left the hospital? Huh. Chan hangs up immediately, practically slamming the phone closed. He then dives into his contacts and blocks Hojin with extreme prejudice. I definitely do not want to be bothered. Scene change. High school. A guy, presumably Hojin, yells, I'll finish that brat, and throws his cell phone onto the ground, smashing it to pieces. The other bullies look at him, bewildered. Why did you break the phone you bought like 2 months ago? Hojin smirks. Chan will buy me another one when he comes back to school. A slow, menacing grin spreads across his face. I'll just have to convince him. Scene change, night. Back at home, Chan is still glued to his computer. He spent the entire day checking articles, even those specializing in military news, but he can't find any information about the conflict in Africa. Is there a reason this battle has been kept so secret? He wonders aloud. After so much thinking, Chan desperately needs to smoke. He searches the room for cigarettes, but comes up empty. Damn nerd, he curses, referring to the original owner of the body. Convinced the kid must have stashed them somewhere, he starts searching the most likely hiding places. Suddenly, Chan stumbles upon a diary. The original owner wrote about being bullied at school. He gave all his money to the bullies, but it was never enough. Chan reads every word, absorbing all the insults the kid endured over the years. It doesn't take long for him to realize that Hojin is one of the ringleaders. Ah, that's the Hojin, he groans. In his diary, the owner wrote about wanting to eliminate all those damned bullies. Chan laughs. Dude, you shouldn't think about committing a crime and then confess everything in your diary. He lies in bed, complaining about the day. Unfortunately, he still doesn't have any cigarettes to calm his nerves. Plus, he now knows he's going to be harassed the minute he steps outside. Scene change. Next day. The next day, Chan is on his way to school with his father. Kong asks, "Are you going to be okay, son?" Chan replies, "Yes, Dad, don't worry." His father says goodbye, and Chan gets out of the car. As he walks through the stairwell gate, he takes a deep breath. Where's my classroom, anyway? It would be nice if someone could come and help me. Suddenly, someone yells for Chan. All the students look around. Wasn't he the one who got extra steel balls in the hospital? Hojin asks, now feeling like a brave hero, huh? The protagonist reads the bully's name on the uniform and realizes that it's that guy who bullies the owner of the body. Hojin is about to talk about the conversation they had yesterday on their cell phone, when he notices that Chan is laughing. What's so funny? He asks. The protagonist replies, I finally found my assistant. Hojin gets annoyed, while Chan asks, did you get my name right? The bully yells that because of Chan, he had to pay for his own lunch and cigarettes. The protagonist is happy hearing this and asks, mind if I bum a cigarette? Hojin holds his fist, saying that he was going to wait until halftime, but he is asking for it. So, the bully invites the protagonist to join him. The two enter the school sports court. Hojin tries to punch the protagonist, which, obviously, goes wrong, because Chan still remembers the mercenary training he received. At that moment, Chan punches the bully in the face. Hojin falls, apparently unconscious. The protagonist thinks for a moment about ending that student's life, but he knows that doing it in the school will bring bad consequences. So, the solution he finds is to steal the cigarettes that Hojin said he had. He checks the guy's uniform and finds nothing. Chan starts to leave the court while asking the owner of the body, are you happy with it? The protagonist hopes that, now, the real Kong Chan can rest wherever he is. Suddenly, the bully, who is faking fainting, gets up. He tries to catch the protagonist from behind by surprise, but it wasn't so quiet. Chan dodges and hits another punch at the bully. Hojin gets up quickly. The protagonist understands that he won't be able to race this guy with just one punch, because this body is not as trained as his old body. So, the alternative he finds is to hit several punches until Hojin falls unconscious. The bully's nose drips red liquid after being hit so many times. Chan also hits Hojin's chin. The guy falls to the ground, and the protagonist keeps hitting. He stops hitting when he remembers that he still doesn't know what his room is. At that moment, the protagonist leaves the sports court and walks outside. He has no idea where his class is. Suddenly, a female voice calls for him. A smiling girl says that she is happy that he has returned to school. The protagonist is frozen in place, observing the beauty of the girl, and mentally says that she looks like Snow White. Then, he notices the name Kim Myung written on her uniform. Chan still doesn't know what Kim's relationship is with the owner of the body and prefers not to say anything absurd. He also wants to avoid trouble, since he is in his last year, so he only confirms that he left the hospital some time ago. I'm so sorry I didn't get a visit, Kim said. Things got crazy at the tutoring school. I was swamped. Chan waved it off. It's totally fine. Everyone in our room was worried about you, Kim blurted out. Chan blinked, confused. Our room, Kim frowned. You haven't forgotten we're table mates, have you? Are you running a fever? She reached out but Chan dodged her hand with a chuckle. I'm fine, really. Could you just point me in the direction of the class? A few minutes later, they arrived. Chan settled into his chair, enjoying the view. Just then, a commotion erupted. Hojin staggered into the room, looking like he'd gone 10 rounds with a lawnmower. Scrapes, bruises, the whole 9 yards. The students murmured, assuming he'd tangled with another school's gang, as usual. Chan just sighed inwardly. Great, I'm stuck sharing a room with this guy. Hojin, seated across from Chan, kept glaring at him. Chan wisely avoided eye contact. BZZT. Hojin's phone vibrated. He sent a quick text. He's gone crazy. Code red. First period. He smirked to himself. This punk's gonna pay. Later, the teacher herded them outside for sports. Everyone changed into comfy clothes, except for Chan. Park Chan, the teacher barked. Why aren't you changed? Kim jumped to his defense. He was just discharged from the hospital today. The teacher's face softened. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're free to choose what you want to do, but take it easy. Chan found a spot on the stairs, lost in thought. What am I supposed to do now, stuck in this body? Suddenly, Hojin loomed over him. What do you want? Chan sighed. It's not going to be like that, Hojin sneered. Come with me. Ugh, should have finished him when I had the chance, Chan grumbled internally as he followed the bully. Hojin led him to a secluded spot where 5 other delinquents waited. The group grinned, eager to turn Chan into a human punching bag. Surrounded, Chan rolled his eyes. Look, can we hurry this up? I'm feeling incredibly lazy. A brown-haired thug stepped forward. I alone am enough to take you down. He cracked his knuckles and lunged. Chan simply sidestepped and unleashed a lightning-fast punch to the guy's nose. Crack! The thug flew backward, a geyser of blood erupting from his face. The remaining 5 hooligans stared in stunned silence. All right, you 5 stooges, listen up. Attack all at once. Think of it as a coordinated offensive maneuver, if you want to sound fancy. And for a slight advantage, maybe aim for, the head, body, legs. Variety is the spice of life. After all, the delinquents, clearly offended by this helpful advice, scowled. Too much confidence, huh? We'll see about that. They split up and charged, a chaotic mess of limbs and bad intentions. But even outnumbered, our protagonists danced through their pathetic attempts at aggression. One by one, they hit the ground, a chorus of groans and whimpers rising from the pavement. The first tough guy, the one who probably skipped leg day for the last decade, staggered to his feet, a desperate look in his eye. He grabbed Chan by the hair, winding up a haymaker worthy of a toddler. Chan, with the grace of a seasoned wrestler, caught the arm, spun, and sent the delinquent flying over his shoulder with a satisfying thud. Ugh, he muttered, cracking his knuckles. This body is definitely out of shape. Back in my day, 1 punch was enough. At that moment, Hojin, face white as a ghost, finally stood, trembling at the sight of the brat who had decimated his crew. Suddenly, a brilliant idea sparked in one of the delinquents' brain. One of them, in a moment of sheer brilliance, pulled out a dagger. Chan merely stared at the coward, unimpressed. The guy lunged, a pathetic attempt at a deadly strike, only to be disarmed and immobilized in seconds, his arm twisted at an unnatural angle with a crack. Chan turned his attention back to Hojin, who was now practically vibrating with fear. Picking up the discarded dagger, Chan examined the dull blade. You know, he said, a dangerous glint in his eye, this is all your fault. If I'd just eliminated you from the start, none of this would have happened. He raised an eyebrow. So, the dagger? Or should I just break a few bones with my bare hands? Decisions. Hojin, his tough guy facade crumbling faster than a cheap cookie, dissolved into a blubbering mess. Please, don't do anything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Suddenly, footsteps echoed nearby. What's going on here? A teacher, seemingly appearing out of nowhere, stood before them. Chan was genuinely surprised. He hadn't sensed the guy at all. The teacher, clearly unimpressed, pointed a finger. You, don't exceed the limits of self-defense. Chan just glared, his eyes flashing. And don't give me that look, the teacher snapped. One more incident, and you're expelled. Fine. Chan shrugged, completely unfazed. I wasn't planning on going to college anyway. The professor raised a skeptical eyebrow. And what exactly do you plan to do with your life without college? He turned to leave, tossing a parting shot over his shoulder. I'll deal with this later. Go home, and bring me all the evidence of this bullying nonsense. For a fleeting moment, Chan had the unsettling feeling that this teacher was someone he couldn't handle alone. He decided to retreat, for now. Oh, and one more thing, the teacher called out. stopping Chan in his tracks. Where did you learn to fight like that? Chan, caught off guard, blurted out the first lie that came to mind. Internet videos? The teacher snorted. Don't insult my intelligence. We'll talk about this later. Chan simply turned and walked away, leaving the teacher shaking his head in disbelief. He hadn't expected Chan to change so drastically after that incident. Later, Chan left the school grounds and wandered through the city center. He decided it was time for a change, a new look to match his new attitude. He headed to the local salon, ready to ditch the old him for something different. Chan got the same haircut as he had in his previous life. After that, the boy decided to grab a bite of a common Korean dish and went to the first restaurant he saw. He promptly ordered a tonkatsu. The order was a bit nostalgic. In the past, the protagonist had ordered exactly that dish before traveling to Paris and doing that mission. At that moment, the waitress served the dish. The protagonist tried it and didn't find it as good as he remembered. Suddenly, his phone rang. On the other end of the line, his mother asked worriedly, "What happened today?" Chan tried to explain that everything was fine and added that he would talk about the details when he got home. Suk apologized to her son for bombarding him with questions and said she would pick him up. But the protagonist got angry and yelled, "I'll tell you what happened when I get home." After that, he hung up. Chan apologized internally to the real owner of the body for acting like that with his mother. He was sure the boy wouldn't talk that way, but he figured his action was still better than jumping off the roof of the school. Meanwhile, at the family home, Chan's father was very angry at the way his son treated his own mother, so tried to justify Chan's attitude, saying that maybe he had a reason to act like that. Kong replied that the brat had changed after that incident. Suddenly, the door opened and the protagonist entered. He didn't talk to his parents and went straight to his room. Kong got angry and got up to scold his son. But Chan walked back to the living room with 2 notebooks in his hand. They were the diary of the real owner of the body. He asked his parents to read it. Suk and Kong were terrified when they read the details of what happened in their son's daily life. They returned the notebooks to the table with teary eyes. The father asked, "Is it true?" Chan answered affirmatively. Kong yelled that he did not understand why he did not say anything before. The protagonist replied that he felt ashamed and also did not want to worry his parents. He added that this was the motivation for jumping. Kong asked if his son made this decision after facing the delinquents. Chan replied that he did. The mother was relieved that the protagonist was not injured, although his hands had some bruises. A silence fell over the room. Kong made the decision to take matters into his own hands, but asked his son to talk to him if something like this happened again. Suk agreed with her husband and apologized for not realizing that he suffered at school. That scene of the parents crying brought back some memories of the protagonist's past life. His real parents were chaotic. His mother was a good person, but the father was a crazy drunk who beat him almost every day. In this life, the protagonist decided to treat his new parents in a different way. He agreed to tell them anything that happened from now on. At that moment, Kang's phone buzzed. It was work. "I'll transfer the money," he said, abruptly ending the call. Suk, ever curious, asked, "What was that all about?" Kang sighed. The French correspondent reported a problem. Apparently, a document is missing at customs. The local negotiators are asking for $100,000 to find a solution. The protagonist was aghast. $100,000. That's like 140 million won. Kang pondered. "I was thinking of sending it, just to avoid problems." But Chan interjected, "Dad, let me handle this." Kang hesitated, then relented. All right, go ahead." Chan took the phone. On the other end, the French correspondent sounded frantic. "They're giving us 30 minutes to deposit the money. Otherwise, everything will be discarded. Tell the manager to get on the phone," Chan instructed calmly. The correspondent seemed confused. "Where's Kong?" "I'm his son," the protagonist replied. "Now, let me speak to the manager." One moment, the correspondent said. Chan's parents exchanged worried glances. "What is he going to do?" Suk whispered. Just then, a French businessman's voice came through the phone. Chan launched into fluent French, leaving his family speechless. Who knew he spoke French? After a brief but intense conversation, Chan hung up. "Everything's resolved," he announced. The negotiators found the lost document. No problems at customs. Kang's jaw dropped. "I knew they were lying to make money, but I didn't think they'd just let the products through without paying anything." The protagonist smirked. "From now on, Dad, you won't be charged. I may or may not have threatened to destroy their entire place of business if something like this ever happens again." Kong was shocked, then chuckled nervously. "He's just joking," he said unconvincingly. Suk, still trying to process everything, asked, "Where did you even learn French?" Chan, caught off guard, blurted out, "The internet." Sook, bless her heart, bought it immediately. Afterward, he retreated to his room. The protagonist lay in bed, contemplating his trip to France. At first, he thought he'd need time to recover. But now, he felt obligated to stay with his parents. This sentimental thought was so rare, he quickly dismissed it. "Don't get all sappy," he muttered to himself. "You're leaving as soon as you're fully healed." The next day, the protagonist was already bored of school. He rested his head on his desk, trying to nap. Hojin approached. "Follow me," the bully growled. The protagonist sighed. "Don't you ever get tired of failing?" Hojin smirked. "I promise, I'll hit you today." Chan simply lowered his head. Hojin sneered. "You don't need to leave here if you don't care about Kim Myung." He couldn't let that threat go unnoticed. The bully imagined he'd gotten away with it, until Chan asked, "Who is Kim Myung?" Hojin sneered. "That girl went to the school roof when she heard you'd be there, but now you're acting like you don't even know her? Scared much?" The name triggered something. Myung was his table mate. He shot up so fast he sent his chair crashing to the floor. Without a second thought, he bolted for the school terrace. A gaggle of students were already there. Chan had expected to find yesterday's delinquents, but he didn't expect the company of girls. A blonde girl, oozing trouble, caught his eye. "Hey there, handsome," she purred. "Fancy a little fun?" Chan just warned, "Get out of here. Now." The girl bristled. "Who do you think you are?" she shrieked. Smack. He slapped her hard. "I said get lost." The girl, momentarily stunned, glanced nervously at the approaching group of delinquents. Hojin, ever the diplomat, chimed in, "I'll handle this. Get downstairs. Destroy this brat," she screeched as she stormed off. Meanwhile, a nagging thought consumed Chan. Where was Kim Myung? Across campus, in the third-year classroom, Kim Myung finally arrived. A friend pounced. "Where were you?" Kim shrugged. "Missed the bus. Sorry I'm late. Did anyone look for me?" Her friend just looked up and made a gesture upwards to the ceiling. Kim followed her gaze, puzzled. Back on the roof, realization dawned on Chan. He'd been played. "Thought you were going to be Prince Charming, saving Snow White." Hojin taunted. Chan eyed the group, then deadpanned. "Actually, she does look a bit like Snow White." He turned to leave, but as he walked towards the door, he was surrounded by 4 goons brandishing wooden sticks studded with nails. Thinking of jumping again, Hojin sneered. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. A wave of nausea washed over him as the memory resurfaced. Hojin was responsible for that accident. "Lost your memory, pretty boy?" Hojin continued. "Nobody forced you to jump. You made that choice all on your own." A red haze began to cloud Chan's vision. He felt a surge of fury, pure and unadulterated. Hojin, sensing the shift in the air, sneered, "Don't think you're going to get away with it this time." A beefy guy in a sweatshirt stepped forward, reaching out to ruffle Chan's hair in a pathetic attempt at intimidation. Crack! Chan snapped the man's hand like a twig and followed up with a brutal knee to the face. "Attack!" Hojin roared. The thugs with the nail bats charged. It was a short, brutal affair. Punches landed with sickening thuds in stomachs, and pinpoint accurate blows shattered noses. The floor became slick with the bullies' red spray. One of the cowards, dagger in hand, tried to sneak up from behind, hoping for an advantage. Fortunately, the protagonist noticed just in time and snapped the attacker's finger. Crack! The sound of the bone breaking echoed, silencing everyone. The injured bully started screaming in pain. Hojin was now the only one left standing. "Didn't learn anything from our last meeting, did you?" the protagonist said, a dangerous glint in his eye. "I promise you, this time I'll finish you." Hojin started shaking, screaming for his teacher. Chan looked around, confused, and saw the same teacher who had broken up the first fight. He couldn't understand what the man was doing here, but he sensed that this was no ordinary teacher. The teacher calmly told Hojin to get these delinquents out of here, adding with a sigh, "And I'll deal with you later." The injured bullies began limping and stumbling out of the terrace. The professor lit a cigarette, shaking his head. "Didn't even wait a day to do it again, did you, Chan?" The protagonist narrowed his eyes. "How did you know we'd be here?" The teacher just smirked. "Simple. Kim looked for me and asked for help." He took a drag of his cigarette, then muttered, "This situation is bad." But the way he said it, the expression he used, it was something only a member of the protagonist squad would say. At that moment, Chan had a sinking feeling. This teacher was reincarnated. The way the man had said, "This situation is bad," it was exactly how the French squadron soldier would have said it. The protagonist decided to test his theory. He said, in French, "Bonjour." The man responded, without missing a beat, in the same language. The next moment, Chan launched himself into a fight. The two exchanged a flurry of punches, but neither landed a hit. The fight continued for a few minutes, the teacher clearly impressed. How can an ordinary high school student fight like that? He wondered aloud. Who are you? Chan returned the question. Who do you think you are? The two locked eyes. The protagonist screamed. Who are you? Those words seemed to trigger something within the teacher, bringing back long-forgotten memories. In the next moment, the two shouted in unison, the god of Blackfield. Scene changed to a few minutes later. The two French soldiers seemed to have calmed down. The protagonist asked Dairo, why is your Korean so good? The man replied, shrugging, I have no idea. He continued, the last thing I remember is when Chan was murdered. I was eliminated soon after. That's all I remember. Then I woke up in bed with a woman, and the Korean language just flowed naturally, as if I had been born there. The protagonist nodded slowly. I understand. He held out his hand. Give me a cigarette. Dairo looked at him disapprovingly. I can't smoke at school. Chan rolled his eyes, annoyed that the soldier wasn't obeying his orders. Dairo yelled at his former captain. It doesn't make sense to give something like that to the student. So, you're going to keep treating me like this? Dairo chuckled, yes. No matter how old your mentality is, you're still stuck in a child's body, Captain. Chan's face flushed. Damn it. He hated when Dairo was right. Chan glanced back at the whirlwind of events. A soldier like Do, occupying the body of Professor Sengo. It seemed their reincarnations, Chan's and Dairu's, had happened concurrently. Tell me, Chan drawled, did you enjoy waking up in the arms of a woman while I was stuck in a hospital bed? Dairu smirked. Let's just say my reincarnation had a much better start. Chan was about to launch into a scathing retort, maybe even challenge him to a duel when Dairu cut him off. Easy there, Captain, Dara hissed, remembering his role. I'm a teacher now, and you're just a student. Keep your voice down, or someone might realize we're a couple of old war buddies. He leaned closer. And why are you causing such a ruckus? We're supposed to be peaceful now. Peaceful? Chan scoffed. I'm just defending myself. Besides, I'm not planning on sticking around. I'm going back to France. Dairu's eyes widened. France? You're going back to that hellhole? Of course, Chan replied grimly. There was a traitor among us. I intend to find whoever's responsible, so the rest of the squad can finally rest in peace. Dairu's expression turned serious. I want in. Let's do it during vacation. Chan raised an eyebrow. Vacation? Are you joking? Dead serious. Dairu insisted. Chan sighed. Fine, just deal with these little delinquents so I can get some peace in this blasted school. Already on it, Dairu replied. Preparations are almost complete. Chan frowned. Were you scared when you first reincarnated? Dairu quirked an eyebrow. Didn't you notice anything different when you fought those thugs on the terrace? Chan shrugged. They were just bullies. They didn't have any weapons. Dairu's face darkened. You think it's normal for students to carry daggers and sticks with nails? Chan blinked. He hadn't even realized that was against the rules. There's a criminal organization backing these kids, Dairu explained. I'm gathering evidence. I'll present it to the school board, and maybe they'll let us travel to France on official business. Chan grinned. In that case, put in a good word for me with the school nurse. I'll talk about the trip to France later. He waved a dismissive hand. See ya. Later that afternoon, Chan was enjoying a rare moment of peace in the infirmary, drifting off to sleep. Suddenly, a prickling sensation ran down his spine. He jolted awake, ready for a fight. Sorry to startle you. Hojin stammered, startled by Chan's sudden movement. He offered a tray of food. I just wanted to bring you something to eat. He continued nervously. The first and second year students will be coming to greet you after classes. Also, they wanted me to let you know that you're the new head of the school. Chan just glowered. Get out. Hojin scurried away, obeying instantly. A few hours later, Chan left the infirmary room. He walked down the school hallway, and students began to dodge him, as if he had suddenly developed a contagious case of don't mess with me syndrome. He continued towards his room and soon found Kim. The girl offered a smile, saying she had kept his things. She returned the bag and asked how he was. The protagonist thanked her for putting away his things and, with a dismissive wave, asked her not to bother him with questions. Suddenly, someone called him. They both looked back and saw that annoying girl from the terrace. Chan, she announced. There's someone who wants to talk to you. Chan grabbed Kim by the hand and declared, we should go. The girl from the terrace looked annoyed by his attitude. Meanwhile, as they walked outside the school, Kim Myung observed, it seems that Yinsul has her eye on you. Chan asked, "Who's Yinsel?" Kim replied, "That's that blonde who came to talk to you just now." She added, "Be careful. She has a bad reputation for sleeping with any man." Chan thought to himself, Kim would be shocked to meet the Western girls. Their conversation was interrupted by some men dressed in black, waiting for the protagonist outside the school. The men confirmed the protagonist's identity through an image on their cell phone. Chan realized he was being chased. Suddenly, the men called him over. The protagonist came to the conclusion that this was the criminal organization Dairu had warned him about. Kim trembled as she begged him, "Don't go." Chan said goodbye to her, reassuringly, "Everything is fine." Then, he approached the rivals and asked, "What do you want?" One of the men smirked. "He's really cheeky," just like they said. The protagonist felt that he would have a hard time fighting all four at the same time, and his biggest concern was Kim Maya. The leader of that gang ordered him, "Get into the car." Chan hesitated to follow the order. On the other hand, Kim mentally screamed, "Don't go." The protagonist continued to stand still, without moving. The bullies laughed, saying that he was acting like a tough guy. Suddenly, one of the men put his hand on Chan's head, and he snapped, "Don't touch me." The man groaned. "He's losing his mind, this kid." At that moment, the protagonist pulled his rival by his clothes and slammed his head into his nose, then threw the guy over his shoulder. The bully screamed loudly from so much pain. The screams drew the attention of the students around, and they took out their cell phones to record the fight. Another delinquent threw the student's cell phone on the ground while yelling at them to stop recording. Suddenly, a bully turned his attention to the protagonist and pulled out a dagger. He was scolded by the gang leader, who said, "Don't use a dagger in front of the school. It's better to solve this fairly." The men obeyed and decided to fight unarmed. The protagonist grinned, finally a real fight. The first attacker charged, only to be met with a flurry of punches, like a clumsy fly meeting a windshield. The second, attempting a sneak attack, ate Chan's fist right in the gut, doubling over like a wilting flower. The first thug lumbered back to his feet, but another barrage of blows sent him reeling again. His buddy tried his luck too, but Chan was a whirlwind of motion. The duel raged on, a chaotic ballet of fists and fury. Chan realized, with a sigh, these guys were tougher than they looked. This was going to take a while. Wham! Out of nowhere, the leader's foot connected with his back. Chan cringed. "Damn, that was embarrassing. Dairu would have never let me live that down." The leader, smirking, ordered, "Get in the car, tough guy." "No way." Chan spat back, dusting himself off. "Fine by me." The leader shrugged. "We can settle this right here." Suddenly, a fist connected with Chan's face. He managed to block most of it with his arm, but the pain still radiated. Freeing himself from the grasp, Chan retaliated with a sharp elbow to his rival's face. Like vultures descending on carrion, the other bullies piled on. "Hey, what's going on here? Is that the police?" A voice called out. Kim frantically reported the scene. "Hurry, they're beating him up." Seeing their getaway compromised, the criminals scrambled back to their feet. Chan, fueled by adrenaline, promised, "Next time, I'm breaking your arms." The thugs piled into their car and sped off in the opposite direction. Kim breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally over. "Troublesome," Chan muttered, "if the cops actually show up." Kim smirked, revealing, "Relax, I didn't really call them. I know you hate dealing with the police." Chan eyed her suspiciously. Is this girl smart, or just a complete airhead? His attention was suddenly drawn to Yunsel, who was glaring daggers at him. Chan approached her, his voice hardening. "If you keep depending on others, they'll just use you and throw you away." Yunsel, bristling with anger, shoved him. "Think before you say things like that to me." Chan, about to retort, thought better of it, and turned away, leaving with Kim. Yunsel screamed in frustration at being abandoned. On their way, Chan clutched his stomach in pain. "Ouch, that punch really got me." Kim, worried, suggested, "Should I call 911? "Nah, I'm fine," Chan insisted, then perked up. "Hey, you want to grab some tonkatsu?" Kim's face lit up with a smile. "I love tonkatsu." The next day, the teacher droned on about some obscure philosopher. Chan fought a losing battle against sleep. This subject was pure torture. He finally succumbed, only to be jolted awake by Kim as the bell rang. "I'd rather be on the battlefield than in this classroom," Chan mumbled to himself. Suddenly, a group of students approached them. One of them, a first year, bowed respectfully. He then extended an envelope filled with money to Chan. He doesn't understand a thing and asks, "Who sent this?" The men glanced nervously at Hojin's desk, only to find the guy has vanished. Chan, unimpressed, just shrugs. He doesn't want money, he declares. Now get out. With that sorted, our protagonist heads back to dreamland. But, alas, another student arrives, ready to spill the beans. Chan, patience wearing thin, is about to blow his top. The boy squeaks out that the teacher is waiting for him in the orientation room. A few minutes later, Chan saunters in to meet Daru. It seems Daru knows all about yesterday's little scuffle. Cut it out, Daru scolds. No more trouble. You're not a child anymore. Chan retorts. You were the one who caused the most trouble back in the day. Daru explodes. This isn't the battlefield. There are cameras everywhere, recording every move. At this rate, you'll be expelled. Chan, nonchalant, doesn't seem to care. Daru takes a deep breath, then asks for a favor. Take care of the 4 students who are being bullied. Chan scoffs. It'll be worse if I interfere. They'll just get targeted even more. Daru dangles a tempting carrot. Skip a class if you accept. Chan's eyes light up with immediate interest. Daru continues. I'll register you as a special athlete. You only need to attend classes in the morning, and if you sleep, the teachers won't bother you. Besides, Daru adds sternly, you need to train unless you want to be eliminated in the first week and sent back to Africa. Chan, seeing the potential benefits, quickly agrees to take on the 4 students. With the deal struck, he walks down the school hallway. Yinsul is waiting for him at the classroom door, desperate to talk. I need to say something, she pleads. Chan, however, completely ignores her and enters the room. Yinsul, frustrated, screams, Didn't you notice the bruises on my face? It's all your fault. Chan stops, hearing the distress in her voice, and takes her to a more private location. Kim watches the 2 of them leave together, a curious expression on his face. Chan chooses the school's roof for their conversation, ensuring privacy. Yinsul blurts out, Those guys told me to bring you to them. Otherwise, Hojin will lose his tongue. I'll be sent to a brothel. Chan suggests calmly, Ask for help from the police or the nearby station that's 5 minutes from here. Yinsul cries out, No, I just need you to agree to meet with them. If I denounce them, it'll be worse. My family's life is at risk. Sobbing, she pleads, I'll do anything if you just meet with them. Chan walks up to her, his eyes narrowed. You'll really do anything? Yinsul replies with a nod. Yes. Chan then says to himself, I knew she was just like them. Chan gently wipes away Yinsul's tears, telling her, Compose yourself. From today on, he continued, no more makeup. Just wear the uniform properly. Yinsul tilted her head. Is that all you want? Chan raised an eyebrow. Didn't you say you'd do anything? The girl seemed relieved. She had braced herself for something less appropriate. That's enough, Chan stated firmly, then instructed, Call the delinquents. Yinsul hesitated, but Chan just gave her a look. Make the call. The leader of the gang answered, surprised. He wasn't used to receiving calls from her. Chan took the phone. Hello, this is Chan. The leader quickly realized Yinsul had managed to convince him. All right, meet me. Chan replied coolly. How about Monday? I'm rather busy this week, you see. The leader sputtered. Is this a joke? You think you can make demands? Chan's voice was ice. Meet me on Monday, or give up on seeing me, forever. Your choice. The leader glanced nervously at the head of the criminal organization, who gave a curt nod. Fine. Monday it is. But don't think you've won. Chan warned, Mess with Yinsul again, and you'll regret it. With that, he hung up and returned the phone to Yinsul. She beamed. Thank you. Then, a little shyly, Can I have your number? Just in case I need anything. Chan smiled. Yinsul would have been Smith and Wesson's soulmate, if the soldier were still alive. I'll see you on Monday, he said, then bid her farewell. Yinsul was left alone. Later that day, class ended, and Chan left the school, mentally cataloging the multitude of problems he now faced. Chan, a voice called out. He turned to see Kim, her cheeks flushed. Can I accompany you? She asked hesitantly. Sure, Chan replied, a little puzzled. Kim seemed bothered by something. Do you like Yinsul? She blurted out. Chan blinked, completely caught off guard. I saw you 2 together earlier, Kim explained, fidgeting. And I can't wear makeup to look as beautiful as her. So I figured you might be interested. Chan quickly clarified. I have absolutely no interest in Yinsul. We were just talking about yesterday's fight. Kim visibly brightened, letting out a relieved sigh. Thank God. Chan frowned. Why are you talking such nonsense? Then, realization dawned. Wait, are you jealous? He pointed at her. Do you like me? Kim froze, her face turning crimson. She abruptly turned away, utterly mortified. Chan sighed inwardly. He didn't feel like a 19-year-old at all. He was still stuck on being 29. The two continued walking in awkward silence until they reached a nearby field. Chan was still trying to process everything when Kim suddenly asked, "Do you want to kiss me?" Before Chan could even respond, she leaned in, puckering her lips. "Whoa, hold on," Chan yelped, dodging the kiss. "We're still students." Kim, now even more embarrassed, mumbled, "Everyone else in our class is already kissing." Chan wondered if the young people had changed that much. He pondered how to escape the situation. "I'll kiss you," he blurted out, "if you come in first place on the next school test." Kim shrieked with happiness. "That'll be easy," she exclaimed. "I always come in first." This meant he would have to kiss her. Suddenly, Kim became gigantic, looming over him. "You'll have to kiss me," she boomed, repeating the phrase over and over. The protagonist ran, desperate to escape the giant girl. The chase was on. At that moment, Chan jolted awake, realizing it was all a dream. Kim Myung had never declared herself to him. That dream was seriously messed up, Chan muttered. A few hours later, he pulled on his school uniform and left his room. His mother, Suk, looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Is something wrong?" Chan asked. "It's Saturday," Suk replied, confused. "There's no class today." Chan's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, right. I'm actually taking complimentary classes because it's my last year," he stammered, making up a quick excuse. His mother seemed to buy it. Outside, the protagonist called Dairu. Sometime later, the two were traveling together by car. "So," Du said mockingly, "the god of Blackfield is taking complimentary classes?" "I couldn't think of another excuse," the protagonist admitted. "Where are we even going?" "To a mountain," the soldier replied, "to rest and relax." The trip was peaceful. Minutes later, the two arrived at a house nestled on the mountainside. Dairu busied himself preparing food and drinks. "Where's my alcoholic beverage?" the protagonist asked. "You're a student in uniform," the soldier pointed out. "No booze for you." Chan reminded him. The driver of the car shouldn't drink either. "Everything's fine," Dairu waved off. "There's a chauffeur service I can call." "You've really gotten used to Korea," the protagonist chuckled. He paused, then asked, "Are you enjoying your current life?" Dairu seemed to have been waiting for this question. At first, he confessed, "I felt like I was going crazy, trying to act and live in someone else's body. But my wife and daughter helped me. I thought about going back to Africa, but I know I won't live long with this body." The protagonist was silent. "I've already risked a lot in my previous life," Dairu continued. "I thought it would be good to live in peace in this new life." "This country is too calm to live in," Chan quipped. "Don't say that," Dairu countered. "You were just in a fight 2 days ago." The two burst into laughter. The protagonist turned serious. "I'm meeting the group of gangsters on Monday." The soldier's expression hardened. "Where?" he demanded. "I'm not telling," Chan replied, "but I hope you'll follow me." "Don't fight," the man said, concern etched on his face. "You don't have the same body as before." "Chan, please," Dairu pleaded. "Don't let me interfere in your problems." Silence descended as they ate, though it was a tense kind of quiet. Dairu finally broke it. "So, how many people do you reckon the captain has eliminated by now?" Chan looked up, surprised. Dairu shrugged. "Hundreds, maybe?" "Just a guess." Chan's jaw tightened. "Hey," Dairu said, "just forget about all that stuff. Try to integrate into this peaceful world, okay?" "I appreciate your concern," Chan sighed, "but you know me too well." He knew he'd eventually return to his old life. Night fell, and Chan returned home. He went straight to his room. Inside, the room transformed into a training ground. He replayed the movements from his last fight, each motion sharper, more brutal. His mind conjured the perfect training regimen, but his body screamed in protest. He collapsed, breathless on the floor. "Am I ready?" he wondered. Suddenly, Suk's voice echoed through the door. "Chan, are you all right?" "I heard some noise." Chan scrambled up, straightening his clothes and flicking on the light. "Come in, Mom." Suk entered. "I was about to sleep, but I wanted to tell you I'm meeting a friend tomorrow." She paused. "And I'm taking you with me." Chan groaned inwardly. "If you have other plans," Suk said, "you can stay home." No, Chan replied. "I'm free tomorrow." The next day, Chan stood outside a fancy French restaurant. "I should be training," he muttered to himself. Suk, oblivious, beamed. "Let's go in." They entered the opulent establishment. Suk's eyes scanned the room until she spotted her friend. Songi. They embraced. The other patrons, all impeccably dressed, couldn't help but stare at the new arrivals. Chan tuned into the conversation, understanding every word. "Show off," he thought. Sung-hee turned to her son, a smug look on her face. Say hello. The son attempted a greeting in French, but his pronunciation was hilariously mangled. Assuming Chan didn't understand, the son puffed out his chest. Very good, aren't I? Sung-hee chimed in, Suk, you should really hire a French tutor. It's essential. Suk tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Sung-hee pressed on. Is Chan good at English? He's all right, Suk replied. Sung-hee scoffed. Studying in a normal school? How can one evolve without a prestigious education? She softened her tone. I only say this because I care. Suk remained silent, absorbing the criticism. Sung-hee's son seized the opportunity to flaunt his French again, beckoning a waiter. De l'eau, s'il vous plaît. Sung-hee beamed. He's so talented. Chan speaks French too, Suk mumbled. Sung-hee's eyes widened. Oh really? Did he study at a top-tier school? He learned it online, Suk admitted sheepishly. Sung-hee and her son burst into laughter. Suk's face flushed. Suddenly, the protagonist switches to French. Arites. All the customers turn, their attention glued to the table. The girls from before, mortified, squeak. Did he understand us? Chan, with a dismissive wave, confirms, Oui, but I have zero interest. The girls blush furiously. The protagonist, ever the diplomat, reassures them, Don't worry, ladies. That guy barely understands French, and the two of you don't speak a lick of it. Chan was right. That guy probably thought he was serenading them with sweet nothings. Suk puffs out his chest. I'm proud of my genius. Not everyone learns French over the internet. The French woman, the one who'd been flirting with him, is genuinely impressed. Oh la la, you speak French. The protagonist, surprised she understands Korean, exclaims, You understand Korean? Please, join the conversation. She finds the proposal intriguing, a playful glint in her eye. The girls get up from the table. Suk, bewildered, asks, What's going on? Chan sighs. These girls want to practice their Korean. The first one is Michelle, the second, Cecil, and the last is Cindy. Suk, ever the charmer, tries to greet them. Suddenly, Sung-hee leaps up. Gotta run. D-Sec has English class today. He practically sprints away. The protagonist smirks, realizing he successfully embarrassed that duo. He turns to the girls. Thank for the assist, ladies. Michelle winks. We're not leaving. I helped you, and I want something in return. The protagonist gulps. Oh no. She grins. Your number. You must have known when you spied on our conversation that we are all interested in you. And let's be honest, there's nothing fairer than giving me your number after that whole charade. He thinks, this is a joke, right? The woman sits down at the table, arching an eyebrow. Are you the kind of man who breaks promises? Chan realizes there's no escape. The scene changes to the next day. It's Monday. The protagonist is intensely focused on his training, yet Michelle's words keep replaying in his head. He chuckles to himself. Suddenly, a voice booms. What's so funny, Captain? Chan jumps, startled by Dairu's unexpected appearance, and abandons his stance. Ugh, I can't even raise my arm after that warm-up. The soldier's face is stern. Again, I must ask you not to meet with the gang. At this rate, you will not arrive alive in Africa or France. The protagonist changes the subject, brightening. I'm going to create a sports club for those who are bullied at school. That way, I can live my life calmly without worrying. Dairu admits, it's a good thought. I would even be the supervisor of the club, but you keep changing the subject, Captain. That gang are not ordinary students. I can deal with. Suddenly, Chan throws his arms up. The Legion is our motherland. The soldier repeats his captain's words, a hint of amusement in his eyes. The protagonist sighs. I don't care about Yinsul or Hojin, but I promised that I would solve it. Dairu says, I love my wife, and I really hope I don't end up in prison because of you. Chan, now dressed, announces, I'm heading out. The soldier moves to follow, but Chan stops him. I don't need company, he says, then pauses, a mischievous glint in his eye. Hey, Dairu, remember Mangala? Oh, never mind. You're probably not even listening to me. Scene change. A few hours later. Class is dismissed. Chan exits the school to find a sleek car waiting. He slides into the back, and they drive off to a factory with a whimsical name, Cotton Candy. Minions, seemingly unamused by their workplace's name, lead Chan through a labyrinth of rooms and then underground. He carefully memorizes the route. 6 rooms on the right, 5 on the left. Finally, they arrive at the room where the superiors await. Chan strides in, facing the head of the organization. The man scoffs. You shouldn't look at adults like that, boy. Chan casually surveys the 5 rivals as he settles onto the couch. The boss leans forward, his voice dropping. The others wanted to bury you in secret, but I thought someone as brave as you should stay alive. I propose you join us. Chan throws his head back and laughs, a genuine, hearty sound. This clearly infuriates the boss. He slams his fist on the table. I'll be direct. I don't want your organization interfering with my school. Chan adds, and I don't care about the crimes you commit, just don't involve children. The boss shakes his head, disappointed. You're just an idiot. Shut up, Chan retorts. In that instant, a lackey lunges at him. With blinding speed, Chan uses the food sticks he had in his pocket to pierce the man's hand. The guy collapses to the ground, screaming in agony, and the other gangsters join the fray. But it's child's play for Chan. Soon, the bullies are groaning on the floor, defeated. The boss realizes he'll have to handle this himself, but Chan is too quick. He grabs the boss by the neck, squeezing so hard it nearly cracks. Suddenly, a noise erupts from outside the room. Chan grabs the boss, using him as a human shield to get past the armed security guards. I'll break his neck if anyone gets closer, he threatens. Chan tries to escape the factory, still holding the boss hostage, but the men disregard his warnings and attack with an iron bar. Chan deftly defends himself, using his foot to send the first attacker flying. The others swarm him, and he defends himself as best he can. Seizing his chance, the boss breaks free from Chan's grip and barks, "Finish him." Suddenly, Chan's foot connects with the boss's face, sending him crashing into the oncoming minions. Then, using the boss as a springboard, Chan leaps over the heads of the men and sprints along the walls towards the exit. The crowd of men surges forward, trying to catch him, punches flying wildly in his direction. Chan defended himself, using his arm. He regretted not having his younger body back to face these dams, but he decided to fight anyway. He exchanged punches and kicks with the bandits, and eventually he knocked most of them down. At that moment, more bandits approached, and Chan realized these were different. They looked scarier. I'll slice your body and feed it to the dogs, the bully with the sword threatened. Chan was dealing with experienced assassins. Suddenly, everyone was surprised when a masked man appeared, holding a bat. A delinquent tried to attack him, but fainted after just one hit. Everyone looked incredulous. Not even Chan knew what was going on. The men who wanted to attack Chan changed their focus and turned to the newcomer. The masked man took them down one by one with ease. Chan laughed, telling himself, "That stubborn friend of mine." The experienced assassins didn't understand who this guy was taking down their people. The man holding the sword said, "Better to deal with the brat first." He drew his sword from its scabbard and slashed through the air. Chan dodged the attacks, but ended up getting hit in the legs and shoulder by a dagger. He had to deal with two experienced assassins who used sharp blades, and a few seconds later, his whole body was injured. Chan's clothes were stained red. Just as the gray-haired bandit was about to deliver the fatal blow, Dairu looked back, screaming for the captain. Chan had a flashback to when he served in the mercenary squad. He was always responsible for leadership on missions. In the last mission, unfortunately, he lost his best friends, but he remembered that those soldiers always entrusted their lives to him. They called him the God of Blackfield. It was thanks to this confidence that Chan didn't think of giving up. He grabbed the blade of the dagger before it hit his eye, injuring his hands in the process. The bandit pulled the dagger back, trying to free himself from Chan's grip, but he couldn't. Suddenly, Chan moved his face close and said, "I received an affectionate nickname from my enemies. They call me the God of Blackfield. This is because I was turned into a monster during the fight." Chan broke the assassin's nose with a blow, then finished him with a punch. The assassin's minion was shocked and didn't have time to realize that he was the next target. Chan hit the man's face with a powerful punch, capable of knocking him unconscious. But Chan wasn't satisfied and thought about murdering this guy until his soldier scolded him. Chan then retreated and looked at the remaining men. "I'll give you a chance to get out alive," he said. "Hide in that room." The bandits obeyed, convinced they were no match for those two. After entering the room, the protagonist collapsed, a wave of pain washing over him. He was seriously injured during the battle. The soldier chuckled mockingly. "I never thought I'd see you like this." Chan squinted. "Why the monkey mask?" Dairu shrugged. "It's a hit with the kids, you know." Then, more seriously, "Gotta get you patched up soon, though." The protagonist hesitated, glancing at the blood staining his clothes. "People will call the cops if they see me like this." Dairu waved him off, stepping outside to check for onlookers. Meanwhile, Chan's eyes landed on a cigarette box, and he reached for it, only to find it empty. Suddenly, his attention snapped toward the factory corridor. "A boss," he whispered. "We got company." The protagonist felt a chill. Approximately 20 people. Reinforcements, most likely. More thugs swaggered in, their leaders stepping forward. He eyed the protagonist. I had my doubts you were just a student. The man introduced himself as Kwangtek. Word got out the manager, Jayum, of the parking lot group was picking up parking. He sneered. Parking is the name of the gang responsible for that factory, the one you trashed. Suddenly, Chan piped up. Hey, anyone got a smoke? One of Kwangtek's men bristled, ready to explode, but Kwangtek silenced him with a glare. Easy there, pal. Someone else called from the back. Coming through, Dairu reappeared, checking on Chan. Kwangtek's eyes lingered on Dairu's mask. That monkey mask? Gibba must be mortified by now. The footman chimed in. I checked the rooms. The gang's not in good shape. Kwangtek sighed. Nothing else to do here. He turned to the protagonist. Tell you what, I can take you to a hospital nearby. My men usually stay there after a battle. Get those wounds patched up. The protagonist, barely able to move, couldn't refuse. A few hours later, he woke up in a sterile infirmary. Dairu grinned. You needed stitches, man. Those knife wounds were deep. Chan frowned. Where are we? Dairu face-palmed. You passed out the second you got in Kwang's car. Memories of the factory, chaos, flooded back. A wave of shame washing over the protagonist. Damn it, he groaned. Chan, ever the optimist, scoffed. I could have taken him without a scratch if I was in my old body. The soldier rolled his eyes. You were out for hours. It's 1 a.m. already. I told your parents you were staying at my place, but they want you to call when you can. The protagonist barely registered the information. Anyone got a cigarette? At that moment, Kwang enters the room and asks, Is everything okay? Chan perks up. Perfect timing. Got a smoke. Kwang waves off. Forget the cigarettes. Is this guy really your teacher? The protagonist nods. Yeah, explaining Dairu's true identity would take forever. He hesitates, but Chan cuts in. My teacher's someone you can trust, Kwang. Kwang decides to trust Chan's judgment. You made us a lot of money. No one in Gangnam will dare cross us for a while. So consider this repayment. Chan is direct. No, I don't want my school involved in your criminal organization. Kwang's expression turns serious. As a friend, I'm warning you, kid. Lay low for a bit. Rumors are flying, and those who hate you will be sniffing around. Plus, you got every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanted to test their mettle. The protagonist shrugs. I don't care about your advice. Kwang bristles. Profits or not, show some respect. I outrank you, Chan. What do you want? A tense atmosphere hangs in the air. Kwang's veins throb, but he quickly recovers. How about we become friends? Dairu finally speaks up. Get your goons out of the doorway. We don't need protection. Kwang raises an eyebrow. And what exactly do you do for a living? I'm a physical education teacher, Dairu replies dryly. Kwang bursts out laughing. All right. My men will stay outside. But if you need anything at all, ask. He walks towards the door, then exits. Chan sighs. Shouldn't you be at school, teach? I can go straight from the hospital. Dairu snaps his fingers. Hey, is there something going on with you and Kim Mayung? The protagonist rolls his eyes. She's just a kid in my class. Dairu warns. That girl's been sending you way too many messages. Chan changes the subject. How long am I stuck here? At least a month, Dairu answers. Chan groans. A whole month in this bed? My family thinks I'm at your place. He snaps his fingers again. I'll tell them I was in a car accident. Dairu nods. Perfect. We'll say those guys outside were responsible. The soldier jumps up. I'll take care of it. A few minutes later, Suk bursts into the ward, frantic with worry about her son. The protagonist shook his injured arm, saying, It doesn't hurt as much as it seems. His mother, worried, insisted, I want to transfer you to a bigger hospital and make sure you're well taken care of. Chan, panicking slightly, tried to reassure her. Everything's fine, Mom, really. He was afraid the doctors at the other hospital would notice the dagger cuts on his body. After all, he claimed it was a car accident. What excuses could he possibly give? At that moment, a doctor and a nurse entered the room. Suk rushed forward, her voice filled with worry. How's my son's condition, doctor? He's doing fine, the doctor replied calmly. He just needs to eat and rest. Suk frowned. I was thinking of taking him to Seoul Hospital, where he was previously hospitalized. The doctor considered this. I can arrange the transfer. The protagonist cursed the man mentally. The doctor continued, the director of surgical services at Seoul Hospital is a friend of mine, so I can pass on some information about your son. But he added, I still believe it would be better for Chan to stay in this hospital. He may not receive the proper attention in Seoul, because the number of patients per doctor there is, well, surprising. Suk listened attentively. Dairu gave a subtle thumbs up, and the protagonist breathed a sigh of relief. I'll talk to your father, his mother warned, but for now, I think it's better to leave you in this hospital. The doctor agreed. If you could leave the room for a few minutes, he requested. I need to change the bandages. Suk nodded. I'll wait outside, dear. The doctor removed the bandages from Chan's shoulder and was visibly surprised by the quick recovery. This is the first time I've seen something like this. The protagonist gave him a grateful smile. Thank you for convincing my mother, doctor. The doctor's expression turned serious. Do you know why I did that? He paused. I had a younger brother who became a gangster and came home with knife cuts. One day, he was seriously injured after a fight between criminal organizations. He went to the hospital but refused treatment. The doctor's voice was heavy. In the end, I was the one who had to announce his death. The protagonist didn't know what to say. The doctor finished the bandage. I have a request, he said, looking directly at Chan. I hope you survive all the fights you participate in, but don't murder anyone in these duels. The protagonist tilted his head in confusion. Why do you continue to treat criminals? The doctor shrugged. It wouldn't make a difference. I wouldn't reduce the number of murders in these fights. Besides, he added, a glint in his eye, my job is to save people, and I don't do it for the money. The protagonist nodded. Thank you for the advice, doctor. The doctor chuckled. I saved you money this time. Chan and Dairu shared a knowing look. He did well, Dairu mouthed. Suddenly, the doctor's demeanor changed again. But, he said with a mischievous grin, if you arrive lifeless at the hospital, I'll earn a lot of money with your organs. With that, the doctor said goodbye and left. The protagonist was incredulous, considering the unsettling possibilities of ending up as spare parts. 1 week later, Chan returned home. He quickly changed into a school uniform, ready to face the day. His mother, Suk, glanced at him, a hint of concern in her eyes. Are you sure you're fully healed enough to go back to school? She asked gently. Suddenly, Chan noticed an envelope in her hand. What's that? He inquired, his curiosity piqued. Suk opened it, her eyes widening in disbelief. Someone sent us 50 million, she exclaimed, her voice trembling. Chan instantly knew who was behind it. Kwang. He cursed mentally, clenching his fists. I'll return the money, Mom. You don't have to worry, he said, trying to reassure her. But Suk was already spiraling. 50 million? No one just sends that kind of money, she fretted. Chan, sensing the need to change the subject, feigned a gasp. Oh no, I'm late for school, he blurted out. Kong, his father, chimed in. I'll take you, he offered, grabbing his keys. They said goodbye to Suk and headed for the car. As they drove, Chan noticed a change in his father's demeanor. The usual lightheartedness was gone, replaced by a serious, almost grim expression. Is there something you want to tell me, son? Kong asked, his voice low. I promise, if you don't want to talk about it, I won't push. Chan hesitated, then decided to be honest. I was involved in a fight, he confessed. I fought with some guys from school, and it turns out they were being supported by some bandits. He quickly added, but I managed to solve the situation without anyone getting seriously hurt, and the bandits promised to leave the school alone. Kong raised an eyebrow. So, why did you lie and say it was a traffic accident? I didn't want to worry, Mom, Chan admitted sheepishly. Kong sighed. Do you know how much Suk has sacrificed for you? At that moment, Chan's eyes fell on a picture on the dashboard, a faded image of his birth. Suk looked incredibly frail, not her usual vibrant self. I remember, Chan stammered, though he didn't really. He knew his mother had some complications during pregnancy, but he didn't know the full extent. Kong simply looked at him, his eyes filled with emotion. Just don't hurt your mother, okay? I won't, Chan promised, his voice sincere. Kong nodded, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, son, for being honest with me today. A few minutes later, Chan entered the school, a wave of normalcy washing over him. He spotted Dao, the ever-enthusiastic soldier, who practically jumped him. Why are you walking around? You should be resting. Dairu exclaimed. Chan shrugged. I was discharged. The doctor praised my rapid recovery. Said I was practically Wolverine, he quipped. Dairu's eyes widened. Our captain is truly unique. He paused, then leaned in conspiratorially. Say, while you were gone, some rumors arose. He lowered his voice. Some said you were murdered. Others claimed you were in the hospital, clinging to life. And someone even swore they saw you being arrested by the police. Chan burst out laughing. Well, that's good to know my legend precedes me. As he turned to leave the sports room, Dairu stopped him. So what are you going to do? I'm going to do what you asked me to do, Chan replied, a sly grin spreading across his face. Daira beamed. Fantastic. Now about those names. The scene shifted to the first class of the day. Most of the students had brought food from the cafeteria to eat in the room. The air hung thick with the aroma of cheap noodles and mystery meat. Suddenly, a student with glasses, mid-bite of his questionable lunch, was smacked on the head. He glanced up at the bully, his eyes wide with fear, and then silently returned to his meal, accepting his fate as just another Tuesday. Hey, Kijin, the guy said, digging into the boy's lunch. I'm doing this for your health, you know? You really don't need to eat this much. The poor kid, Kijin, just mumbled in agreement. Suddenly, the bully chimed in. Why aren't you eating, huh? And before Kijin could answer, the bully shoved a huge wad of food into his mouth. The room erupted in laughter at Kijin's expense. Instead of helping, the bully just kept stuffing more and more food in. Then, the door swung open. The bully whipped around, scowling. Who dares invade my domain? He snarled. His face paled as he recognized Chan. He bowed repeatedly, practically tripping over himself. Chan. Chan waved off the theatrics. Is there a Kijin here? He asked, cutting to the chase. The bully pointed a shaky finger at the boy with glasses. Chan approached, noticing how Kijin was trembling. Hey, Chan said gently. Kijin, meanwhile, was having an internal crisis. Why was the Chan looking for him? We need to talk, Chan stated. Kijin's eyes widened. Why would I? The room gasped. How dare Kijin talk back to Chan? The bully sputtered. Hey, watch your mouth. That's the boss you're talking to. Chan just sighed. Don't interfere, he said, then turned to Kijin. We need to talk. Seeing Kijin about to protest, Chan grabbed his hand and started pulling him out of the room. The students stared, a mix of fear and morbid curiosity on their faces. Everything's going to be fine, Chan called over his shoulder, mentally noting just how terrified everyone was of him. Scene change, second-year classroom. Chan and Kijin approached a girl sitting alone. Are you Xion? Chan asked. She nodded. Yes, I'm Chan from the third year. I'd like to talk to you. Soyeon visibly trembled. Are you busy? Chan inquired. She jumped up. No, I can accompany you. The three of them left the room. Meanwhile, back in the first-year classroom, the captain scratched his head, tried to place the third student. Who was that again? Suddenly, Soyeon's bully came face-to-face with Chan in the hallway. Boss, he exclaimed. Soyeon gasped, shrinking back at the sight of the man. Chan's eyes narrowed. The bully bowed deeply. Siho from his second year. I was the one who delivered the money last time, boss. Chan just made a dismissive gesture. Get out of the way. Siho scrambled to obey. Sorry for the intrusion. Sorry. A few hours later in sports room, Chan stood before a small group of nervous students. Thanks for coming, he began. The reason I brought you here is because I intend to create a sports club. He paused for effect. Professor Kono will be the supervisor. He scanned the room. Any questions? Kijin raises his hand. So, what sports are we actually doing? Chan beams. I'll be teaching physical training and the basics of self-defense. We can also choose another sport to pass the time, if you'd like. One of the girls hesitantly asks, Why? Why were we chosen? The protagonist pauses, thinking for a moment. I want to become friends with you all. An awkward silence hangs in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Daira jumps in. The students can refuse to participate in the club, of course, if they don't want to. But, he adds with a sly grin, I'm sure it will be beneficial for everyone. He points to a document on the table. Those who want to join, please sign here. The protagonist pumps a fist in the air. It'll be a lot of fun, I promise. The students still look terrified. Dairu sighs. Captain, please, try to contain your enthusiasm. You're scaring the poor kids. He turns to Chan, a puzzled expression on his face. Besides, why did you bring her? Kim Mayoung steps forward, beaming. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Mayoung, and I'll be the club's manager. Dairu throws his hands up in exasperation. Why would you bring a girl that the whole school expects to get into a prestigious college? Kim Mayoung cheerfully starts sharing the documents with the students, who seem instantly charmed and at ease with her. The protagonist puffs out his chest. I didn't bring Kim. I found her in the hallway, crying because she wanted to follow me. I couldn't refuse her help. Just then a delivery man appears, Tonkatsu, delivery 4. Daira interrupts. Perfect timing. Mayoung, could you please serve the students? Everyone starts digging into the delicious dish. Yunsol, observing the me getting hidden, suddenly bolts out of the room. Chan, completely bewildered, chases after her. Hey, where do you think you're going? Yunsol huffs. I'm not. Wandering around, the protagonist decides not to waste time with her, tells the girl to leave. As he walks back to the sports room, he hears a sudden, piercing scream. Yinsul calls out, "Are you sure I can leave?" Chan, exasperated, replies, "Yes. Go on, shoot." She presses, "Aren't I being suspicious?" The protagonist just shrugs, "I don't care." He turns and strides back into the room, leaving Yinsul fuming, frustrated that she couldn't get his attention. Later that day, all 4 students, albeit reluctantly, signed the document to join the club, so the protagonist commanded the training. Yinsul watched the scene from afar, her eyes narrowed. After a grueling physical effort, the students collapse onto the ground, panting and exhausted. Kim Myung, ever the diligent manager, pours them refreshing drinks. Kijin groans, relieved, thinking it's finally over. The protagonist claps his hands together, a manic glint in his eyes. "All right, everyone. Now the official training begins." The students stare at him in shock. Chan asks, "Why do you all look so surprised?" Kijin whimpers, "Didn't we just finish training?" The protagonist grins. "Oh, that was just the warm-up." The students' souls nearly flee their bodies. A few minutes later, the real training begins. A ball comes flying out of nowhere, catching Kijin completely by surprise. He crumples to the ground, clutching his face. The protagonist rushes over. "Hey, you shouldn't try to stop the ball with your face. Are you okay?" Kijin, voice muffled, gives a thumbs up. "Why, yeah, fine. Darius, ease up. Was aiming for the face really necessary? We're at school, remember?" The protagonist bit his tongue, resisting the urge to retort. "Understood," he mumbled as Kijin tossed the ball back. Chan, never want to back down, smirked. "All right, let me show you what happens when you purposefully aim for someone's face." He unleashed a shot with such force that it whizzed, leaving a faint trail of sparks. Dairu, unflinching, blocked it with his foot, sending it screaming back. Thus began the volley, a blur of motion and controlled fury. The ball became a projectile, rocketing from one side to the other with terrifying speed. The students watched, their jaws slack. Surely, they thought, no club could be more intense than this. Sometime later, their muscles screaming, training finally ended, and the students shuffled off to wash. Chan, ever the optimist, approached Dairu. "My body's improving every day, Captain." Dairu, dripping with sweat, nodded. "True, but you're recovering, thankfully. Still, think it's better not to keep this up every day. How about twice a week?" The protagonist, already feeling the ache in his bones, eagerly agreed. Just then, Yinsul's voice cut through the air. "Hey, you," she called to the protagonist. He turned, a scowl already forming. "What do you want?" "I want to join the club," she declared, her voice ringing with determination. Her answer caused a ripple of surprise. The students, mid-wash, stopped to stare. "No," the protagonist stated flatly. Yinsul bristled. "That's not fair." "Why not?" Chan chimed in. "You're a third year. You should be worrying about studying and getting into university." Yinsul exploded. "That doesn't matter. I'm not going to any university anyway. Besides, why can't I participate if Kim Myung can? She's a third year too." Dairu, ever the diplomat, stepped in to defend Kim. "Kim can participate because she has good grades, unlike some people." Yinsul's face fell, frustration etched in her features. She glared daggers at Kim Myung, who visibly winced. With a huff, Yinsul turned and stalked away. Later, as classes ended, the protagonist waited for the light to change, Kim Myung by his side. "Don't you think you should reconsider Yinsul's request?" Kim asked tentatively. She seemed pretty sincere about wanting to join. The protagonist scoffed. "She doesn't fit in. She'd probably just scare everyone." The light turned green. "See you," he said, already stepping off the curb. "But she could make friends if they just spent some time together." Kim called after him, but the protagonist, already several steps ahead, didn't hear her. He walked alone through the streets, lost in thought, replaying the events of the day. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A voice, laced with a distinct French accent, came through the speaker. "Hello, how are you?" Chan frowned, not recognizing the voice. "Who is this?" "It's Michelle," the voice replied, a hint of amusement in her tone. "That girl you met at the restaurant." The protagonist's eyebrows shot up. "Why are you calling?" Michelle chuckled. "You just keep making a fool of yourself, don't you? Even after attracting the attention of 3 girls. Chan says again, "I'm not interested." He asks, "Do you remember I'm still a student?" Michelle asks, "So you're not interested in French?" The girl tries to arrange a date that day, but he says, I'm still recovering from my injuries. The girl starts to say obscene things. The protagonist says, I can see you on Saturday. So, the two arrange the meeting, even though he does not seem interested. The protagonist says to himself, I only did it because I promised that I would do it if I received help. He walks home angrily. The scene changes. The moment Chan enters the house, his father is on the phone and decides to hang up the call when his son arrives. He says, You're home early. Chan soon questions, Who was that on the phone? Kong replies, It was a customer. He tells his son to go rest. Chan obeys, but has the feeling that his father is hiding something. A few hours pass, and Kong remains thoughtful. The protagonist changes clothes and tells his father, I'm going for a walk, then invites him to come along. At first, the man refuses, saying, Everything is fine, but changes his mind and says, I'll accompany you. It's late at night when the two walk outside the building. Chan finally asks, Is there something wrong? Kong plays dumb. So the protagonist gives the same answer as his father, saying, If you don't want to answer, it's okay, and I won't ask again. Kong is happy, realizing that he copied her attitudes. The man reveals that he really has a problem. The two sit on the bench. Kong says that he intended to import French cars and sell them here in South Korea. It would be approximately 50 cars. He would request more from the French company after they sold them all. At first, the plan seemed to be perfect, but an external factor intervened. The SEO Jang Group established a subsidiary called Sejong Motors, and now they offer to make parallel imports of the same cars that Kong intended to sell. The protagonist assured that those scammers were jealous of his father and stole his idea. Suddenly, he is surprised by himself for referring to Kong as his father in his own thoughts. The man continues to explain the situation and says that call he received was from France. The company guaranteed the monopoly, but only if Kong buys 500 cars with each purchase. They are acting as if Kong was the priority, but they made that offer knowing perfectly well that he would not be able to match their demands. Kong is sure that if he refuses the offer, the French company will close a contract with a much greater cooperation. The protagonist asks, Which car model do you intend to import? The father replies that it is the Shift. It is an extremely luxurious car. Chan knows that it will be absurd the amount of money to pay for 500 cars like this. Kong says that it can get worse. He gives up the money he spent on the contract of 50 cars, or he'll have to do his best to sell them here. Either choice results in approximately equal losses. At that moment, he starts crying. I used the house as collateral in this contract, he confesses. Things could get really difficult for us if the situation can't be contained. The man also apologizes to his son. I'm sorry for showing such a pathetic side of myself. The protagonist reassures him. Everything's fine, Dad. I just don't want it to affect Mom. Kong sighs. That's what really worries me. I'm doing my best so that Suk doesn't find out. The protagonist raises an eyebrow. Well, your expressions aren't exactly helping much. Your concern is pretty obvious, you know. Kong apologizes again. I am sorry. So Chan inquires, How do things stand currently? Kong replies, The executives from France will arrive this week. The protagonist realizes. The French company is in a hurry. The father reveals. They've decided to rest tomorrow and meet on Sunday at noon. The protagonist perks up. I have an idea. Can I accompany you to the meeting? Kong waves his hand dismissively. You don't have to worry. I'll solve it myself. But Chan insists. I want to go with you. I can even translate what the French want to say. Kong is totally dejected and sad. I don't see any way out. Suddenly, the protagonist gets up and starts yelling at his father. We have to try. If nothing works out, at least we did our best to recover the situation. Kong is surprised by his son's sudden determination and agrees. Okay, we'll try. I'll need your help, even if the results aren't good. But promise me, nothing we discuss there reaches your mother's ears. Later, the protagonist returns home. Suk asks, Where's your father? He responds, He decided to stay away a little longer. The woman finds it strange. Chan says goodbye and heads back to his room. At that moment, his phone rings. He answers, and his face falls. Ugh, it's Michelle. But soon after, a sly grin spreads across his face. Actually, you called it a great time. The girl teases. You missed me. He corrects. Not exactly. I was hoping to postpone our date for another week. The girl's tone hardens. What? No way. The protagonist explains. It's because of some personal problems. She grudgingly agrees. Fine, one more week. But that's it. The protagonist ends the call and turns his attention to what is most important at the moment. He remembers, I had an account with money when I worked in France. A hopeful expression crosses his face. It would be great if I could access it. Then, his expression turns grim. But I forgot all the data. To make matters worse, I can't just call the bank and say that I'm the legendary god of Blackfield. The protagonist calls Dairu and tells him about his family's troubles. He intends to call the nearest agency, which is in Hong Kong, on Monday. That's great, Dairu replies, but I'm worried about Sook. The protagonist sighs. He's too Dairu. That's precisely why I'll deal with this as soon as possible. The scene shifts to Sunday at the Namsen Hotel. Kong explains to his son, there will be 2 executives and a translator from their company. They know you, my son, Chan, but you will introduce yourself as an assistant translator. The protagonist nods, understood. His father pats him on the shoulder. Thank you for your help, son. The 2 walk towards the hotel, Chan steeling himself, ready to assist in the negotiations. As soon as they enter the hotel, Kong introduces the executives of the French company. At that moment, the protagonist freezes. A man walks towards him with heavy steps. Chan recognizes that face instantly. It was Chalin, the captain of the French mercenary squadron. How is he still alive? The protagonist wonders. Chalin raises his hand to greet Chan, who is paralyzed with shock. The protagonist's father, oblivious to the tension, greets the man warmly. Chalin speaks only in French. He scolds another executive, who is shamelessly flirting with one of the hotel waitresses. The man, named Smithin, immediately obeys. The protagonist is further stunned to see another familiar face from the squadron. Kong asks, "Are you all right, son?" Chan, recovering quickly, replies, "Yes, father." Then greet the executives properly. The protagonist introduces Kong as the CEO of Kong Motors, then introduces himself as an assistant translator. Chalin smiles. Your pronunciation is excellent. It almost sounds familiar. Chan manages a weak smile. Thank you. Chalin introduces Smithin as the office sales manager in Asia. The executives proceed to the table. The hotel waitress nervously prepares to take their orders. Smithin can't help but keep ogling at her, earning him another sharp rebuke from Chalin. Chalin leans forward, curiosity piqued. Is the name Kong Chan common in Korea? The protagonist hesitates, hoping the language barrier will be his salvation. Chalin chuckles. Perhaps I speak too fast. You did not understand my French. Chan quickly responds, it is quite common, yes. A cool name, Chalin declares. The protagonist, feeling a bead of sweat trickle down his temple, retorts, I find your name familiar as well. Silence hangs heavy in the air. The waitress arrives with the drinks, breaking the tension, albeit temporarily. Chalin, ever the professional, signals that he's ready to begin negotiations. Kang's translator nervously clears his throat. The protagonist's father turns to Chalin, addressing him as vice president. It will be difficult to accept your sudden proposal, he says, and that is why I hope that the conditions of the contract about having a monopoly on 500 cars will be modified. Charlin states, I won't change the conditions. If I wanted to, I could just have you sign the original contract for 50 cars. He pauses, adding with a sly grin. But if Kong does that, Sojong Motors will also be able to import the cars under the same conditions. The protagonist realizes, with a sinking feeling, that Charlin hasn't budged an inch. Kong interjects, I've already paid half the contract price for those 50 cars. According to the contract, paying the remaining amount is enough to obtain a monopoly on shift rights in South Korea. Charlin acknowledges, you're right. Just prepare facilities that match headquarters requirements. Kong retorts, great. I've already signed contract with workshops all over the country to use my facilities. Now, I just need to prepare the other requirements. Charlin drops a bombshell. I gave the same conditions to Sojong Motors and received a positive response. Kong is visibly shocked. He thought they were about to close the deal. One of the Kong Motors executives, red-faced with indignation, shouts, this is absurd. We should take legal action. The protagonist sees the executive's outburst and silently prays, oh, please, don't poke the bear. Charlin's eyes narrow. I'll accept those words as if they were from Kong Motors. He continues, his voice dripping with veiled threat. It's a shame, but I'll make a point of declaring that it was Kong Motors that started this battle. Charlin abruptly announces, I'm leaving, and Smithin scurries to accompany him as the executives frantically try to salvage the situation. At that moment, the protagonist steps forward. Mr. Charlin, he asks, could you give us a little more time? Charlin, already halfway out the door, retorts, I have no more time. The protagonist, undeterred, pleads, just 1 week and 1 night. Charlene raises an eyebrow, intrigued. An assistant translator can take responsibility for his words. Kong turns to Chan, a flicker of desperation in his eyes. Do you have a plan? The protagonist admits, no, but it's better than abandoning the game now. The Kong Motors executives, predictably, have a different opinion. It would be better to apologize now and request a renegotiation, one of them exclaims. The protagonist explodes. If you do that, these people will intensify their attacks. Kong, visibly stressed, rubs his temples. Charlene and Smithin pause, waiting for an answer. Kong takes a deep breath and addresses the executive. Translate my words. As of today, Chan's words and decisions are absolute. This means that he will answer for Kong Motors. The executive is aghast. President Kong, don't do it, he pleads. Chan bows slightly to his father, a mixture of gratitude and trepidation in his eyes. Thank you, father, for your trust. Charlene leans forward, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Will you also give up the technical assistance rights if you cannot pay for the 500 cars in 1 week? The protagonist replies confidently, you shouldn't worry about that. Charlene remains dubious. And what about the extra night you asked for? Chan simply replies with a mysterious smile, you'll see. Smithin shrugs. He sees no problem. Charlene, however, can't shake the feeling that Chan reminds him of someone from his past. The protagonist presses. Do you agree with our decision, Mr. Charlene? Charlene, after a moment of consideration, answers, yes. Call me the day before the meeting. With a final, appraising look, they shake hands, and the deal, or a version thereof, is tentatively closed. Living with Charlene and Smithin, off the battlefield, it felt like sharing a tent with a pair of grizzlies who'd just discovered indoor plumbing. Convincing them both of anything? Good luck with that. Charlene and Smithin finally took their leave, leaving the executive types to swarm Kong. Now the French company has a reason to attack. They whined. Kong, ever the contrarian, just scoffed. They didn't foresee this situation, did they? He retorted. It's a significant evolution. He declared it was time to head home. On the way, Kong dropped a bombshell. Are you really my son? Chan nearly choked on his own spit. Surprised, are you? Kong continued. I know you didn't learn French from Duolingo. Chan sighed. You wouldn't believe the truth even if I told you. Kong changed the subject faster than a politician changes their mind. Don't go running to those gangsters for help. Understand? Chan nodded. Silence descended, thick enough to spread on toast. Chan subtly texted someone, meet me later. A while later, Kong parked the car. I have something to take care of, Chan mumbled, practically diving out of the car. And remember, Kong called after him, no asking the delinquents for assistance. Chan, halfway down the street, threw a hand up in exasperation. I won't. Kong took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and entered the building. Chan, meanwhile, headed in the opposite direction, a glint in his eye. Flashback time. The French squad back in the thick of it. They were trying to save a village under attack. Dairu fought alongside Chan, who was playing captain for the day, navigating the enemy territory. They parkoured across rooftops. The enemy threw everything they had at them, from bazookas to bad breath. Chan, a blur of motion, used his speed to ambush the enemy from behind. Bang, bang, bang. He dropped the enemy with deadly speed and accuracy. Several cars exploded in a glorious symphony of fire. Chan emerged from the flames, dusting off his shoulders. Zone K is secure. Dairu rolled his eyes. Show off, he muttered. Chan, ever the responsible leader, was worried about the villagers. Casualties? He asked. A soldier reported. From minor injuries, thankfully no fatalities. Good, Chan said, relieved. Where's Smithin? Dairu shrugged. Haven't seen him in a while. Chan felt a knot of dread tighten in his stomach. Meanwhile, inside a dilapidated house, Smithin had cornered a terrified survivor. Let's have some fun, shall we? He sneered. The woman screamed and begged him to stop, but Smithin was deaf to her pleas. Suddenly, the door exploded inward, and Chan stood there, a thundercloud of fury on his face. Seeing Smithin in that situation, a red mist descended. Smithin, caught red-handed, tried to play it cool. Just helping a survivor, he stammered. Smack! Chan's hand connected with Smithin's face with the force of a small meteor. Don't you dare try to deceive me, he roared. That day, Smithin received a beating so thorough, it made the enemy look like they were offering massages. The scene snaps back to the present. Chan remembered the past, a nagging feeling that Smithin hadn't changed a bit. Suddenly, A car screeches to a halt beside them. Did I keep you waiting too long? Dairu asked, leaning out the window. Not all, Chan replied. Dairu gestured for him to get in. Once inside, the soldier noticed Dairu's tense demeanor. Something wrong? He inquired. I found Smithin, Chan announced. Dairu's eyes widened. And Charlton Dairu? Those two are still alive. They're at the Namsan Hotel. Dairu floored it. We're going there now. Hold on a minute, Chan interjected. They've both got new, successful careers. Charlton's the vice president of Gong Cars, and Smithin's a manager. Dairu burst into laughter. Then his face turned serious. You're not joking, are you? Why are you so eager to go to the hotel? Chan asked. I can't believe Smithin's a manager of anything. He was the dumbest guy in the squad. Besides, Dairu continued, his voice hardening, I've always felt like we were betrayed by them. We were left for dead, while they're living the high life. Don't you see that, Captain? We need evidence before we jump to conclusions, Chan cautioned. Evidence we can get after we beat the truth out of those traitors, Dairu declared. Chan sighed, but Dairu ignored him, accelerating the car. I'm doing things my way. Dairu, don't do anything stupid. Chan snapped. Dairu slammed on the brakes, his shoulders slumping. Sorry, Captain. Got a little carried away. He paused. Then a sly grin spread across his face. What about that bully, Kwang? We could ask him for help. Chan considered the proposition. Kwang's organization could provide invaluable assistance, both in gathering information and, if necessary, in a brawl. But he hesitated, mindful of his father's explicit instructions to steer clear of the city's criminal element. Chan drummed his fingers on his knee, searching for a solution that didn't involve crossing that line. Just then his phone rang. It was Michelle. Hey, did you manage to solve that little problem you mentioned? She asked. Chan groaned inwardly. Not yet, I'm afraid. Oh, Michelle replied, sounding deflated. I was really hoping. Chan quickly changed the subject. Where should we meet tomorrow? Michelle giggled. I don't care, as long as I'm with you. An idea sparked in Chan's mind. How about the Namsan Hotel? That sounds wonderful, Michelle exclaimed. Bring some friends, Chan added. Namsan Hotel, you say? At what time? 7 p.m. Perfect. I'll be there, she chirped. The call ended. Who was that? Dairu asked, a smirk playing on his lips. A beautiful French woman, Chan replied. Sounds like you're planning some fun, Dairu chuckled. Use your brain, Dairu, Chan retorted. Our adversaries are Smithin and Charlton. Think. Recognition dawned on Dairu's face. You're using the girls as bait, he exclaimed. At that moment, the protagonist calls the hotel. Charlin, the assistant, answers. He will pass the information to the vice president, Charlin says. Chan sets the meeting for Tuesday at 7 p.m. Merson, on the other end of the line, agrees. The protagonist begins. Tomorrow, I have an appointment at that time with some girls, but please don't misunderstand the situation. Smithin replies, jealous, with a chuckle, and says goodbye. The call ends. Dairu says, Smithin's reaction wasn't what I expected. Has his personality changed? The protagonist assumes it's because Charlin is close by, so he restrained himself. But I'm sure that tomorrow, Smithin will show up to see the beautiful girls. Dairu agrees, then keep it up, playboy. The protagonist tells the soldier, go with me tomorrow. I'm sure Smithin will go crazy when Michelle and the other girls arrive at the hotel. It's at this moment that you must act. Kidnap Smithin at the first opportunity and take him to the car. Dairu is excited about the idea. I intend to look for a quiet place where I can take Smithin. I will destroy him, personally. The protagonist asks, are you sure you'll be okay alone? Dairu is sure he can defeat Smithin alone. Chan replies, maybe in the past you had a chance, but you'll have difficulty with your current body. In addition, Smithin was always good at arm wrestling with you. The soldier remembers the duels they created in the squad. Everything will be fine. All the times he won, it was because I used my right arm instead of my left. The protagonist says, I understand, but you no longer have the body you had when you were a soldier. Smithin still has the same body. Dairu says, I was just joking. The protagonist breathes a sigh of relief. I will help you catch Smithin, but know that if everything goes wrong, Smithin will have to be eliminated. Dairu says, if we're lucky, we'll be able to solve Kang's problem and destroy those who betrayed the squad. The protagonist agrees with his friend. The two seem excited to put the plan into action. The soldier confesses, I'm nervous. The protagonist says, me too. Dairu goes back to driving while the protagonist focuses on how they are going to capture Smithin. He knows that the soldier's abilities are incredible, which means that Smithin is superior to any gangster the protagonist has fought so far. Later that day, night descends. Dio, leaving Chan at home, announces, "I know some places to take Smithin in." He adds, "Does the captain need a list?" "Nah, I'll let you take care of it," the protagonist replies. With that, the soldier departs. Chan enters the house and discovers his father stirring a pot of porridge. Suk hasn't been feeling well since he learned about the family situation, the man explains. He suggests, "You should go rest, son." The next day arrives, and a visibly discouraged Kong drives the protagonist to school. Chan warns, "I've contacted some people who know Gong's executives, and they will look for a solution." Kong pleads again, "Please don't get involved in illegal things just to help the family." Okay. Chan relents. The car stops at the school entrance. Dairu stands there, waiting. Later, class commences. The protagonist struggles to stay awake, always resisting sleep. Kim laughs at his struggle. After classes, it's time for nerd training. Kim Myung, ever supportive, yells, "Keep going, you nerds." Yunsul watches from afar, a silent observer. Hours later, classes end. Kim Myung asks to go home with Chan, but he declines. "I have other plans." Kim Myung playfully prods. "Oh, are you going to find a girl?" "I'm meeting Professor Congo," he replies. "Then I'm going with you," the girl declares. "After all, I'm the manager of the club." "You can't go," the protagonist insists, and then he leaves. Kim Myung is crestfallen. Chan goes down the stairs of the school when he hears a scream. It's Yunsul, asking again to join the club. He only replies, "I'll talk about it later." Chan enters the sports room and notices Dairu dressed formally. "I think it's better not to dress like that," he remarks. Dairu asks, "Is it bad?" The protagonist gives up. "Go as you want." He asks, "Did you bring your clothes?" The soldier replies, "It's better to get dressed in the car," but Chan is against it. The space there is very small. On the other hand, Dairu is worried about getting the school's attention if they see them leaving in suits. In the end, he tells the protagonist, "Just turn around and do whatever you want." Night comes. Dairu stops the car at the entrance of the Namsun Hotel. He says, "I'll wait in the basement parking lot." Chan retorts, "You can wait in the hotel's coffee shop. There's no way Smithin can recognize you after all. You reincarnated in another body, remember?" The soldier, suddenly nervous, says, "I am afraid of being beaten by my wife, but I can't pass up the possibility of kidnapping Smithin." Then the man orders the protagonist, "Get out of the car, so I can park." Chan obeys and enters the hotel. Inside, he realizes that Michelle has not yet arrived and decides to wait. Suddenly, someone calls him by the name of Boss. The protagonist looks confused because he does not recognize the man. So the man introduces himself as Dosuk, one of Kwang's minions who yelled at the protagonist. Dosuk says that he works here and can ask for help if he needs it. Chan tells him to leave. Dosuk obeys. The protagonist sits on the couch, wondering why this gangster works here. This could be problematic if Dosuk knows about my plan, he thinks. At that moment, someone interrupts his thoughts. Michelle arrived, accompanied by her friends. They were so beautiful that they caught the attention of everyone in the place. The protagonist is ready to put his plan into action. The girls talk to each other in French, saying that the protagonist is well-dressed and more handsome than ever. Dairu notes that he has already started the plan and makes a movement with his head, confirming that he will stay there. Michelle complains that Chan isn't paying attention to them. The protagonist justifies it by saying that everyone is talking at the same time, then asks them to talk one at a time. Michelle asks what the plans are for today. He says that, first, they will go somewhere else. Dairu carefully observes that he is following the plan. The protagonist takes the girls to a dinner table. At that moment, a hotel employee serves several dishes. Chan warns that he hasn't placed any orders yet, but the man replies that he was instructed to serve the dishes and is already paid. Chan thinks about who could have done it. The waiter says that those dishes are the most luxurious in the house. The protagonist gives up on prolonging the subject, and Michelle asks for the wine menu. Then she turns to Chan and says that he must be very important. The protagonist replies that he actually has some acquaintances at the hotel. Michelle is more and more in love. On the other hand, Chan mentally curses the gangsters. He believes it was their idea. The wines finally arrive, and the protagonist decides to continue drinking soda. He justifies it by saying that he is just a student. Michelle insists because she thinks it is okay to break the rules from time to time. The girls also drink wine, but they complain about how much Michelle is drinking. After half an hour of conversation, the protagonist discovers a lot about the girls. They're all 26 years old and met after working together for a while. Currently, Michelle is a magazine editor, Cecil is an employee of a security company, and Cindy is a freelancer for now. Things seem calm. At that moment, the protagonist's phone rings, and he asks permission to answer. At first, he thought it was Dairo, but then he realized it was Kwong and got angry. The leader of the bandits soon says that he knows he is wearing a suit at the Namsun Hotel. The protagonist replies that it is none of his business. The man tells him not to act that way because he is just wanting to be his friend. Kwong adds that the protagonist can ask Do-suk for help, and he will take care of most things himself. Chan hangs up, and Michelle pipes up. That boy is acting mighty strange today. It's like he's scheduled a date with 1,000 problems all at once. Female intuition, she declares, and I'm never wrong. The protagonist sighs. All right, he relents, deciding to spill the beans. No point hiding it anymore, and maybe you can even help. He explains, there's an American named Smithin staying at this hotel. He'll probably be joining us soon. Michelle crosses her arms. So, that's why you dragged me out here? Well, yes, in a way, he admits, but I need to check something out in person. He winces. Michelle becomes thoughtful, while the other girls seem less than thrilled with this development. An awkward silence descends, thick enough to cut with a butter knife. Suddenly, Michelle breaks the silence. I'll forgive you, she says with a playful glint in her eyes, because you were sincere. This time, no punishment for you. The girls murmur their agreement. Cecil chirps. It'll be fun to have someone else join us. The protagonist feels a wave of relief. Things are looking up, but just as he relaxes, his phone buzzes with a message from Dyer. Smithin is here. Chan's mind races. Okay, we can still make it to the club. But then another message arrives, this time in French. Pas encore. Not yet. The poisonous snake is in front of me. He immediately knows what Dyer means. Are you sure? He texts back. Positive, Dyer replies. Saw the snake tattoo on 3 of them right out front. Probably more inside. They've got a red snake design above their left thumb. Dairu continues. I've tangled with these guys in Paris. There's no mistaking them. The protagonist's stomach plummets. If Dairu knows them, then this is bad news. Could they have been hired as bodyguards for Charlene and Smithin? Dairu's next message seals his dread. Forget it for today. No way we can take these guys. Initially, he agrees. But then logic kicks in. They won't necessarily leave tomorrow, he thinks grimly. And it'll be even worse to face them and Charlene at the same time. Just then, another message. They're heading to the club. The protagonist feels cornered, his plan crumbling before his eyes. Unseen, the enemies descend into the club's underbelly, their figures illuminated by the flashing lights. The girls notice the tense atmosphere, but have no idea what's really happening. Chan desperately tries to conjure up a plan B, but his options are dwindling fast. He makes a call. Do-suk, he says urgently when the gangster answers. There are about 4 Westerners heading to the club. He cuts to the chase. I need you to evacuate everyone when they enter the room. Do-suk replies with a shrug in his voice. I can't do anything like that without the boss's orders, you know. The protagonist agreed and contacted Kwong. Hey Kwong, he asked. Close the club tonight. Kwong was understandably surprised. I don't have time to explain, the protagonist stated tersely. The boss sighed. I can't just close the club. I only have a portion of the shares. I'd have to talk to the other shareholders. Chan, desperate, promised, I'll carry out any request you have if I get out of this alive. Just close the club. Kwong was incredulous. Anything? Really? The protagonist, sweating slightly, passed the phone to Do-suk, hoping the leader would bite. The bully, seizing the opportunity, informed his superior. Chan is asking to lock the 4 Westerners inside the club and evacuate everyone else. After a few agonizing minutes, the cell phone returned to the protagonist's hand. Kwong agreed to help, but he stipulated, you're taking some of my men in case things get out of hand. In 30 minutes, some of the strongest fighters in my squad will be there. The protagonist considered this. Score, he thought. Another chance for success. If Kwong's employees manage to stop the French gangsters. All right, he said aloud, I accept. Close the club. He hung up. Michelle, noticing his changed demeanor, asked, is something wrong, Chan? Chan turned. Sincere, there are members of the poisonous snake here. The girls gasped. They knew the French gang's reputation. You need to leave, the protagonist urged, before things get worse. Michelle, ever loyal, asked, is there anything I can do to help? Chan looked at her scared expression. Honestly, probably not. Besides, I'll be back in France one day, and I don't want you to have problems for being seen with me. He stood up. nodded to the girls. I'm going. He warned Dosuk, take care of the ladies. The gangster, surprisingly compliant, obeyed. The protagonist left the hotel restaurant and walked towards the club, a million what-ifs swirling in his mind. Dairu caught up to him, and together they entered the club. As they descended the stairs, Chan laid out his plan. First, we can't be noticed by the poisonous snakes. Then, he continued with a glint in his eye, we eliminate 2 of them with 1 hit each. They won't suspect a thing. Dairu, ever practical, asked, what if they're armed? The protagonist scoffed, this is Korea? I'm pretty sure they wouldn't use weapons, especially if they don't know what's coming. Just then, a group of girls stormed towards the exit, clearly annoyed. Some guys suddenly told us to leave, one complained. What a waste of a night, another grumbled. The protagonist gave Kwang a mental pat on the back. He finally arrived at the hall, a party already in full swing. Some people were celebrating with alcoholic beverages. Fortunately, there were fewer customers than usual. Dairu subtly indicated where the members of the poisonous serpent gang were lounging. The protagonist strode confidently towards them until he spotted a familiar face, Smithin. Smithin, my good man, he greeted. Where are the beautiful girls you promised? I was promised the finest fillies. Chan chimed in, they haven't arrived yet. Smithin, feigning disappointment, said, a real shame. But join us for a drink while we wait. The 2 settled in beside Smithin and his cronies. And who might this be, Chan? Smithin asked, gesturing towards Dairu. Chan replied smoothly, he's a friend and responsible for bringing those lovely ladies you so desire. Allow me to introduce Seek, Smithin. A pleasure to meet you. Smithin offered Dairu a drink. A pleasure, soldier. Cheers. Dairu reluctantly accepted, inwardly cursing Smithin. The protagonist noticed customers starting to trickle out of the club. Smithin, ever observant, complained, I'm disappointed. I heard Koreans love to drink and party, but suddenly it's as silent as a tomb. After the few people who were here left, the protagonist said with a sly grin, don't worry, Smithin. The real show is about to begin. At that moment, the doors of the club slammed shut with a resounding clunk. The guard, looking panicked, stammered, something's wrong. Chan yelled, it's showtime. Dairu wasted no time, delivering a bone-crunching punch to the nearest member of the poisonous serpent gang. Smithin, realizing the situation had taken a turn for the worse, tried to flee. As men fell like dominoes, Chan and Dairu employed a broken drink bottle to deal with the remaining guards. Smithin glanced back, noticing the protagonist's murderous gaze, and despaired. The whole place was quickly turning crimson. The protagonist had no time to chase Smithin. One of the gang members was trying to sucker punch Dairu from behind. Chan intercepted, sending the would-be assailant sprawling. Dairu seized the opportunity, tackling Smithin with a furious roar. He jumped on top of the man, knocking him to the ground. Consumed by rage, Dairu rained down blows on Smithin's face. The confrontation was intense, a whirlwind of fists and fury. The protagonist continued methodically eliminating the remaining gang members. The last guard standing realized he couldn't win against Chan with his bare hands, so he reached inside his suit. The protagonist's eyes widened, imagining the worst. Oh, please don't be a dagger. That's all for today. For the next part, make sure to subscribe my channel Fire Recap. And you don't forget to share and like the video. I am out.